Hello, and today I'm going to show you how I made this cardboard gingerbread house for my dog, and it could serve as a good toy for your dog as well, or just as a nice prop under the Christmas tree to add to that festive holiday spirit in your home. First things first, I obviously took the measurements of my dog to know what kind of size house he needs. And I decided to start with side walls. Although, after cutting a little bit, I realized that together with the side walls, I'm also cutting my floor. So, a little reinforcement had to be installed there. I still kept cutting my floors though. I thought that we can connect the walls between each other with these edges that stick out and go through the wall next by, like a puzzle piece. But in the end, I used them a little bit differently. After cutting the side walls, I realized that they are way too big for him, so I decided to transform these into front and the back wall and make new side walls instead. And while it was still disassembled, I cut out the entrance and all the windows. And originally I planned to make these half-round windows on the sides, but making one, I decided to not torture myself further and just stick with the square ones. Once all of that was done and we had cut out all the base pieces, it was time to figure out how we can attach them between each other. And in order to do that, I decided to just fold the edgy pieces that I cut before and just glue them to the walls in the corners, and that worked really well. After that, I measured and cut the roof pieces and I attached them via these also separate corner extension pieces, if I may call them like that. And that also worked pretty well, even though it didn't really hold that sturdily yet. But I figured out that after adding individual details on top of everything, it will make the structure more strong. With that, the base structure of the house was done and it was time for some decorating action finally. And I thought that will be the most fun part until I realized how much individual pieces I actually need to cut out. And after realizing that, I understood that I don't have time nor wish to be perfect in this project because it was mostly just for fun, and everything turned out a little bit uneven and sloppy, but I think in the end it didn't really destroy anything, so... And boy oh boy, that took me still a lot of time to do. And I think this is the moment where I can mention that this whole project of building this cardboard gingerbread house took me in total of 12 non-stop working hours to do. Even I wasn't ready for that much hours invested into cutting and gluing cardboard, but here we are. Of course, I kept adding more and more pieces, and at some point I had to tell myself to stop because more ideas started to pop up into my head and I could go on forever probably. So I finally reached the roof, and I wanted the roof to look like there are tiles on it, and in my mind there was only one way to do it. I mean, we could just draw them on basically on the flat cardboard surface, but I wanted it to have the actual structure of it. So the only way to do that was to again cut a tons of individual tile pieces to glue on top of each other. I also added these trims on top of the roof and on the sloped sides to somewhat give it a little bit of depth and also conceal the uneven cut edges of individual pieces. And then I reached the most fun part, I think, and that is painting the house. And I tried to sample some paints to match the gingerbread color, but the thing is, they naturally vary themselves here and there, and cookies don't come out same color and same way each time, so it was not that important to be super precise, luckily. Looks like a really sick diarrhea instead of gingerbread, but I guess that's fine. I'm so afraid to do this because if something is not right, I'm gonna f it up, and that's it. Well, yeah, that was a little scary to start doing because I was afraid that the cardboard may start to dissolve with the moisture and that the project will end right there instead of making it till the end. But luckily for me, it did not, and it worked out really well in the end. First, I wanted to use watercolors for it, but it quickly started to sound like the worst idea ever in my head, for obvious reasons, because it's too watery. And then I switched to acrylics, which worked pretty fine, even though I barely made it till the end, because I lacked paint and they were so old that I basically scraped it out from the tubes. And ideally, I would say that this would work with gouache paints the best, which I used on the white details. But unfortunately, white was the only gouache paint that I had. I didn't have more, so I had to use these all acrylics for the brown parts. The paint job turned out pretty uneven, but I think it added more depth with that to the surfaces, so I think that was more of a plus than a minus there. As the last bit, I decided to add some quick drawings on it, and it was not really necessary, but I just didn't like the empty wall spaces there, so I quickly doodled some wintry kind of themes there straight out of my head. And with that, I deemed the house to be done, and it was time for reveal. So this is the final result, and I'm really happy how it turned out because it looks really detailed and way better than I thought it will. Because up close you can see how sloppily and uneven the individual pieces are cut out, and even the drawings are kind of not really that great because my hands were so tired at that point that I couldn't draw the lines really straight or copy them precisely, but in general picture you cannot really see it, and it still turned out really cool looking in my perspective. So yeah, we reached the end, and despite looking so simple, it took me a hella long time to make, and it was also a hella lot of fun. So I'm looking forward for making more projects and filming them and sharing them on my channel. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you later in the next video, hopefully. But wait, do you know what was actually the hardest part of this all? To get the dog inside of there. And that's because he absolutely hated it. Yeah.